What's a red flag you don't mind so much in a potential significant other? A certain type of dating history. Everyone has their own style of dating. For example, Person A has a history of 3 to 4 year LTR but has never married, while Person B doesn't have any relationships beyond 6 months. Person A thinks it's a red flag that Person B can't commit, when the reality is they simply end a relationship they don't see going long-term. On the other side, Person B thinks it is Person A who can't commit based on the fact they have years-long relationships but don't progress. It's all relative to how you compare the person's history to your own style of dating. Someone who has a fucked family. Because mine is also fucked up. Redditor responds. Yes to this. Having a fucked up family isn't anyone's fault. However, it requires self-awareness, good coping skills, and strong boundaries. A lot of people with toxic family dynamics and childhood trauma unfortunately haven't healed to that point, if at all. I didn't have a happy childhood and was deeply traumatized for most of my life. I just couldn't understand why my relationships would never work out. Turns out, it was me. I'm the bad guy in a lot of people's stories. My non-existent self-esteem also put me in the position to be victimized in numerous abusive relationships. I got my shit together, have been in therapy for years, and now have the skills I need to be in a genuinely healthy relationship, both romantic and platonic. It's not our fault, but it is our responsibility. Not having a lot of prior relationships, as an older person. When I met my husband, he was 34 and had had only one serious relationship up until that point, which was 15 years prior. Now I know a lot of people would see that as a waving red flag and think there was something wrong with him, but the reality was he was in a male-heavy specialty, engineering college to an engineering job, had a job where he traveled about 90% of the time and, when I met him, had just moved back to the area where he had grown up after being away for over 10 years. None of that was conducive to meeting people or a relationship, and, beyond that, he's not a particularly social person or someone who really revels in the company of others, which didn't help. We met online, we clicked, we started dating, we got married 2 years later and are still married 18 years later. Redditor responds. That was something my ex always held against me. She was always saying I was so immature and that I'd be lying to her and cheating on her because I never had a lot of long-term relationships. Funnily enough, she was the one who cheated on me and lied to me. It's just projection. Someone who isn't close to their own family. I'm not close with mine either. I'd actually think it was refreshing to be with someone who understood and felt the same way. Redditor responds. It took a team of doctors to tell my GF. You don't have to maintain a toxic relationship just because they're your parents. You wouldn't tolerate their abuse from anyone else, right? So you don't need to tolerate it from them. You can love them from a distance, and disconnect for the sake of your mental health. Things have been 10 times better since she went no contact. It still hurts, but it's better. Another Redditor responds. I had the hardest time getting people to understand this. I finally would just ask, if anything I told you was done by my husband, what would you tell me? Okay, why does that change when it's my dad? Why does that make it better? Why does he get an abuse pass? It helped. For those that still maintained family was everything and should be excused from everything, I either kept them at a very distance or moved them out of my life. How a man treats his mother is a sign of how he'll treat you, so be careful. Or if he dislikes his mom, doesn't want to help her, be there for her, talks bad about her. It could be because she's horrible and it's just a sign of how she treated him. Redditor responds. In my honest opinion, the bigger red flag is when the man has a super close relationship with his mom. Like if a man expects you to compete with his mother, run. Another Redditor responds. Biggest red flag is when they're really close with their mom and does whatever she tells him to do, but she is manipulative/toxic, and then you end up being the one to take care of him emotionally. Bonus points if he has a deadbeat sibling that she treats way better and doesn't expect anything from. Oh, and extra bonus points if his dad died a few years ago, so it's easier for her to guilt trip him into doing whatever she asks. Is this oddly specific enough? I'm not bitter, I swear. Not being very communicative or chatty through text. Some people simply aren't into texting. I dated a guy who was like that. At first I took his lack of communication and short answers as not being interested, when in reality, he simply wasn't much of a texter. I just accepted that's how he was. In person he was great. Redditor responds. This is so real. I'm a horrible texter and it honestly makes it hard to get out of the talking stage nowadays, but it's like I promise, I'm great in person. I've been told my lack of social media is a major turn-off and a major red flag. But I find a guy that doesn't have any social media or very little attractive. It's all about perspective. Redditor responds. I think it's quite the opposite. I realized what a huge red flag is for the other person to be way too active and too dependent on social media. I don't mind some mild possessiveness. In fact, I think it's kind of hot. I blame all the Wattpad stories I consumed during my formative years. Redditor responds. Same. My husband and I joke that we're both stage 5 clingers to each other, not really that bad as we don't control each other, but we're best friends, have all the same hobbies, and love spending all of our free time together. There's nothing better than a hard day's work and coming home to someone who is excited to see you, even if it's just a Monday. Another Redditor responds. I don't know if I'd even call mild possessiveness a red flag. I think not being possessive at all would be more worrisome for me. It would feel like they have no investment in the relationship at all. Another Redditor responds. I used to think this too. And then I got into a relationship with my now husband. I used to tell him it worried me that he never had feelings of jealousy. He just kept saying that he trusts me and if I ever choose someone else then he would be devastated, but he won't stop me. Then one day I went out and he couldn't get a hold of me. My phone died and I didn't think it mattered. But he called everyone we knew looking for me. When I finally got in touch with him, he cried with relief. He said he was terrified I was dead. He called the hospitals. It was then that I realized the difference between jealousy and caring. He never thought I was cheating or being secretive. I was careless and didn't think it would matter. He just wanted me to be safe. It changed me. Now I always am fully transparent to ease his mind, share my location, give a time I will be home. Because he loves me and will worry if I'm not here. But we have never gotten into fights about why I am looking so good or why are you talking to that dude. I talk to whoever I want. And vice versa. Not gonna lie, I'm genuinely desperate enough to ignore most red flags. Redditor responds. Well, this just made me giggle. Sometimes, bed buddy is worth a little danger. Clinginess. I like when she always wants to be around me and up under me. Redditor responds. I used to hate this until being with my now fiancée. She's my best friend. I can't believe I was in such long relationships before where I felt like I needed my own time. My time is her time, and I wouldn't want it any other way. Another Redditor responds. It depends. I love my wife to death but have some hobbies that are wholly uninteresting to her. I grew an only child and have more of an affinity for objects and hobbies to pass the time growing up without siblings in the house. She understands and that's all it takes. Hey! We're halfway through the video, thanks for watching. 96% of the people watching my videos are currently unsubscribed to my channel. you would help me out a lot. Thanks. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Absorbed in their hobbies/their work. I love that. Go buck wild, even if it's obsessive. Also because bruh, I have a terrible rest/production ratio. I need someone who understands. LOL. Someone with mental health issues. I basically screened for that when I was dating. Hubs had one depressive episode in his life, meanwhile I struggle a lot with it. But just him having the one episode allows him to know somewhat what I go through and be there for me in a way someone who never experienced depression couldn't. No friends. No family contact. Because those are all the things I'm currently dealing with. By choice. Friends just kind of faded and realized I was the only one putting in effort. And my family is extremely toxic and one-sided. So I would look at it more as a green flag. But in a relationship right now with someone with the opposite of me, and sometimes it's a struggle. But it's workable. Redditor responds. My girlfriend is the sweetest, kindest, most thoughtful person ever, and her family sucks, and any friends she has have also sucked. It was a red flag she wasn't close to her family, but the more I've been around them and they all corroborate each other's stories, I understand why. I'm stretching the prompt, but one supposed green flag that everyone lies about in dating profiles that makes me run away is pretending that you're super adventurous and outdoorsy and always out of your house on an adventure. Exhausting. If a woman admits she's a homebody, I fall in love. My people. Go out once in a while, sure. So you can get home and feel extra appreciative for a couple weeks. That's how I do it. Back when I was dating, I didn't mind a girl with a lot of experience. Reddit loves using the term body count. If she wanted to be with me after being with lots of other guys, that told me I must be pretty damn good. Redditor responds. Until we get some experience into us, most people probably think of sex as a little weird, unfamiliar, and even uncomfortable. Now I'm not a kid anymore. I don't really see the appeal of having to walk someone through that whole stage. A little bit of jealousy. I can deal with it since I can be a little jealous myself. Redditor responds. Jealousy is normal, it just has to slowly fade in trust, and not the opposite. Being high maintenance. I think it all depends on which definition of the phrase you're going with. I've heard it used to describe women who are obsessed with their appearance and take 2 hours to get ready for a night out with hair and makeup. That doesn't bother me at all. I like to look my best when I go out for the night, and I like the woman I'm with to also look her best. Plus I enjoy the time they're getting ready. I either chill and do stuff I don't usually have the time to do, video games/YouTube/whatever, or I sit and chat with them while they do their makeup and hair. It's a nice and peaceful time to unwind together and check in with one another before we go out for the night. A woman with a kid. I'm biased though, met my wife when she had a 2-year-old girl. Been married 10 years this week. Redditor responds. I'm not sure if that's a red flag more than just a preference. Like, if I see a single mother, my thoughts don't immediately jump to anything sinister, more so that the situation could be a bit more complicated, and I have to ask myself if I have the capacity to enter into that. Some people, you do, and some don't, but I think it's a preference thing more than anything else, but I could be wrong. Depression. My missus was in a rough way when we met. I took her under my bubbly delightful wing and pulled her in the right direction. Helping and supporting her every single day. It may be tiring at times, but shit, I wouldn't trade it for the world. She is amazing. I type this as I sit next to her knowing she means everything to me. Damaged goods are fine by me. I was damaged at a point in my life, but I'm healed and am will to help heal others. My wife is a rock star and the light of my life. Love, listen, be patient, and don't be afraid to point out where they goof. People goof often, I goof often. A goof is nothing more than water under the bridge. Talking a lot about their ex, lol. I don't consider it an automatic red flag by any means. It depends entirely on what they're saying. Redditor responds. I find the hard line with this one is if they start to compare you to their ex. Even if unintentional, they will subconsciously start to see you the same way as their ex and forget that you are not their ex. Some mildly self-destructive behaviors. Not too extreme obviously, but I think sometimes being sad or contemplating their own mortality in a negative light can stem from an awareness that people are frequently cruel and destructive to the world around them, and this forces one to take an honest look at themselves. That is to say, I have an exceptionally hard time trusting people who don't get depressed or don't seriously contemplate the negative effects humanity has on the world. If they are in therapy. The saying, "Don't stick your dick in crazy," really should be, "Don't stick your dick in untreated crazy." Someone with a mental disorder who is getting treatment, taking their meds if needed, etc. is pretty much the same as someone without a disorder. Now someone who skips their meds, refuses to get treatment. Not being in constant contact or not being the best texter, applies more for long distance. The quality of conversation is better than quantity. If we can manage a good conversation a couple times a week, it's much better than random BS like "how's your day" every day. Plus I'm not the best texter myself, so I wouldn't want to place unreasonable expectations on anyone else. A history of cheating. Not a long history, but if they cheated once, regretted it, and seem to have grown from it, I'm likely to look the other way. Redditor responds. Agreed. I cheated once at 19, my current BF is aware. I would never ever do it again. It changed me as a person in a very positive way. So I know people should not be written off after one mistake that they grew from. I know it sounds bad, but I like a little jealousy/possessive. I want someone who feels that I am that desirable. I wouldn't let them feel insecure however, but it still would feel good to have someone obsessed over me, lol. Smoker. My wife smokes. Total red flag for me now, but I won't leave her for it. But if I was single, I wouldn't seriously walk this road again with a smoker. Redditor responds. I'm exactly the same with my partner. He smokes and I wouldn't leave him for it because when we met 6 years ago I did too, quit 4 years ago, and if we never worked out I'd 100% not date a smoker. I always tell him, it's so gross and it stinks so bad. It's still so strange to me because I did this disgusting habit as well, but I just can't stand it since I quit it. This may not be considered as much of a red flag anymore, but being into nerdy or childish things. I dated a guy who was really into a competitive 10-person arcade game and I loved it. A lot of my friends warned me that was a sign of him being a man-child, and in the end he kind of was a man-child, albeit in other ways, but as a nerdy person myself I found it really attractive, and validating, how unself-conscious and passionate he was about it. Self-harm scars. As someone who's been there, I personally think it shows immense mental fortitude and strength. It shows that you're a fighter. Having an alternative look. I like piercings and tattoos on a girl. I'm not a fan of the bright-colored hair though. I feel like I struck gold by pursuing my boyfriend. He was 27 and never had any romantic relationship at all. Never kissed anyone, never even held hands. Had 2 unsuccessful dates his entire life. The issue? He's an introvert and was a late bloomer. In high school he was barely over 5 feet tall and looked like a little kid. In college he looked like he was in high school and just starting to grow facial hair. So no one his age wanted to date him, and of course he wasn't going to date younger. Then he graduates and gets a job and meeting people becomes difficult, not to mention 2020. Plus his confidence was severely affected by all the rejection. I couldn't understand why no one ever gave him a chance. He's not ugly nor fat. He's very smart. Funny. Like, why did no one want him? I didn't figure it out until I saw pics of him in high school and college, and he told me how small and young he looked compared to his peers. He is so sweet to me. Best lover in every way. Sure, he was inexperienced, but he figured it out. He gives me plenty of love and affection and treats me like a queen. I'm glad I met him when I did, and I was able to snatch him up before anyone else discovered him. LOL. If you're still here, can you please check if you are already subscribed? It would help out a ton. Thanks for watching. Until next time.